All right, what is up, Utes fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And the Utes just got a commitment from a guy named Emery Simmons. He is a wide receiver that last season played for Indiana. He also has experience in the ACC. He's played for North Carolina and Indiana, a guy that should bring a presence to our offense. Now, like a lot of transfers we get, the grades aren't always the best. It's kind of up and down with when we get the transfers, but it feels like a real similar pattern with this guy where he's coming in with decent grades at other schools against high end talent, right? We're talking about a guy who played at Indiana and he played at North Carolina, which means you're playing good schools basically every week. That's the Big Ten and the ACC. And so when you consider that and consider that we'll go into the grades in a bit, but with the right coaching, with the right staff around him, this could be a huge opportunity for us to get a big playmaker receiver in Emory Simmons. Let's go ahead and dive in and let's take a look at Emory. All right, guys. So this is Emory Simmons. As we go ahead and dive into this, before we do the deep dive, please make sure you guys like the video. Also, comment down below. What do you guys think about Emory so far? Any information I forgot to bring up, feel free to drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking or any questions you guys have. Also, if you haven't already, this channel should be your number one source for Utah football over the offseason. We don't talk about basketball. We don't talk about baseball. We talk about Utah football all year round. The videos might not be as plentiful in the off season, right? At least for this first month, I got to take a little bit of a vacation, but I'll keep the content coming as the off season keeps rolling. But let's go ahead and dive in. So first thing I want to tell you guys. Um, Emory Simmons has been playing football since 2019 in college. That means he has 4 seasons where he was playing football and he was playing for North Carolina and Indiana. So they're playing on big stages. He's not going to be gun shy. He's not going to be scared of the big stage, if that makes sense. And with that, last year in his 2022 season, he was able to get 408 yards at Indiana. But before I talk more about the stats and the grades over these past few years, I also want to say, like I said, 4 seasons, 1,269 snaps, according to PFF. The guy played a lot of snaps. He has a lot of experience. So the cool thing is that means he's got a lot under his belt. And with the right coaching, which is the case with a lot of the transfers Utah gets, I think that's why people choose Utah. He should be able to take that next step in his career. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning of his college career in 2019. So in total, 91 snaps, just a little under 100. And this is with North Carolina. I know it shows an Indiana symbol up there, but this is with North Carolina. And let's take a look here. So uh, when you look at it, he's got some good grades. You see this, there's highs and lows here. But what I love is there's really only one grade under a 50, and that's his at Pittsburgh game, which is kind of a consistent thing you'll see where he doesn't have like great games and really bad games. He has like good games, and then like you wanted more. They're not the worst grades in the world, but they could be better. So this would be a great example, right? Here's a great game against Virginia. This is in his 2020 season where he played 299 snaps. So his first season where you see like there's a lot of 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus, and even a 60 plus snap count out here. So this is where he's getting a good amount. So this would be a bad game, a 48.1, right? Like pretty bad. But I'd say that gets canceled out by that 77.9. That's a pretty great grade. And then we've got a 56.3, which is well below average, but not a terrible game. You guys will kind of see the pattern here. 65.3 above average, 62.6. There's good games or like above average, good games. And then there's some, below average games, but they're never terrible. It's not like he's a liability while he's out there on the field. And then with that, we take a look at his 2021 season where he only played 7 games. Again, this is with North Carolina. 56. Like, look at this. This is not a good grade, right? But it's not dreadfully bad. It's kind of like you want a lot more. It's well below average, but it's not, I look at grades a lot, and that's not in like the terrible category. I can guarantee you there was a lot of Utah wide receivers that have had way worse grades than this over the past couple seasons for in an individual week. And to be fair, there's been a lot of Utah wide receivers that had way higher grades than what his ceiling is. But what I like so far is his floor, and hopefully with Utah getting their hands on him, they can raise his floor. So this is probably the most important season, his last season. That's that 408-yard season with Indiana. He only played one season there, so he is a double transfer, so he's transferring again, but he spent a while with North Carolina before transferring out. So maybe Indiana was just not a good fit, and he felt like he didn't want to waste his time, right? So 385 snaps here. That's a very good sample size. Again, guys, there's no terrible grades, right? These 50, 51, those are well below average. But then we got a 70.3. That's a good grade, a 65.7 average grade. These some of these are a little below average, but you guys kind of get the idea with what I'm saying here. The grades are not terrible, right? They're not great. I think last year, okay, here, take a look at the bottom of the screen here. You guys can see it. This is what he graded every year. So 63.1, 64.2, 59.3, 60.6. Now, to be fair, these first two grades in 2019 and 2020 with lower snap counts than the rest of the season, right? Oh, I actually misspoke. He had 555 snap counts last year. But I would also say those were low snap counts in his first couple seasons. So none of those grades are terrible, right? The beginning grades are a little average-ish, and then the most recent grades are slightly below average. But overall, it feels like we're getting a pretty good player. Now let's talk about where he's been playing and kind of what we should expect from him coming in. Let's take a look at that. All right, guys. And one other thing, according to Steve Bartle of 24/7 Sports, is that this guy has 1 year left and then a second year available if he elects to choose that free COVID year. So he could potentially play 2 years for Utah, which is great because I could see this guy honestly, I don't see this guy being just some random transfer this year. We get those from time to time where you don't expect them to make a huge impact. I actually see this guy getting a good number of reps at Utah. I think there's a reason you're bringing this guy in. He's gotten a good number of reps everywhere he's went, so I don't see that changing at Utah. A decent player, not a ton of high end, but not a ton of low end either, like we went over in the grades. But just to tell you guys, so I could see him, playing a role this coming year and being like a pretty good player for us. I mean, who knows? Obviously, I'm optimistic and I would love for him to come out and kill it. But let's be realistic about what we're seeing here, and maybe that next year, so that that 2024 season could be a huge year for this guy. So first off, let's take a look at what we're getting with this guy. So when we look at his snaps from last year, take a look at the bottom of the screen here. I highlighted it there. He only played 26 snaps out wide. That is really low. That's not a knock on the guy. He only played 26 snaps out wide, which means 525 of the 555 snaps that he took came in the slot, which is a big deal, right? That means we have a guy like I think it's pretty clear when we look at all this information that this guy is going to be a slot receiver for Utah, right? Over 500 snaps in the slot last year in the Big Ten. A solid, consistent, reliable guy. And from what I understand, a guy that has very high end athleticism upside, good speed, good ability in and out of cuts. He also, I didn't talk about it, but he had 2 carries last year for 54 yards. You take a look at this running grade of 74.9. So you guys, if you watch Utah football, we love that play where you motion around the wide receiver, usually the slot guy, and you do the fake handoff in the backfield to the wide receiver and then run the play. Now we've got a guy that's proven. I mean, it's a low total number, but I think that's what you're looking at with this guy is he could fit into this Utah offense really well and run the ball well while he's playing for Utah. So I think that's pretty exciting. And with that, he seems like a good player overall. Not a terrible run blocker, not a bad receiver. A guy that hopefully Alvis, our new wide receiver coach Alvis, can bring in, develop like he did with Rashard Higgins, like he did with Olabisi Johnson, like he did with Michael Gallup, right? This guy is a proven developer of talent, right? And this kid has already shown decent play at other schools. So imagine once this guy gets his hand on him and starts to mold him. I think this is an awesome addition to the receiver core. Like I said, guys, make sure you like the video before you get out of here. It really does go a long way in helping out the video. Also, comment below any questions. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on Emory Simmons. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. This is a Utah football channel. If that's what you're about, if you like Utah football and you like talking about it, I think this is a cool channel for you, especially if you appreciate the analytics. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. And, I know there's other channels out there that talk about Utah football, but I think if you're into this sort of thing, and I try to keep it balanced where it's analytics and football speak, because I love both, right? Like I know there's the eye test and there's the analytics. There's both. But if you're into that and you love Utah football, I would imagine you're going to like this channel a lot. I hope you guys do subscribe and continue along this journey with us. We have an awesome community. So drop a comment in the chat, and I'm sure a bunch of people will want to respond, and I'll try to make sure I respond as well. But I'm out of here, guys. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy those conference championship games in the NFL, and go Utes.